Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, Deborah Leanne.
Can you just do that chime thing? Ah,
Let's just all
take a breath,
settle down, take a breath.
receive the life that we have in this moment, that we are gifted with in this moment. Oh, yeah. And I just feel like that is the perfect way for us to introduce light
I do too.
because it evokes something beyond our head. And we stay so much up here that I'd like to. That was beautiful. Would you like to introduce our topic, darling?
So, yes, we are talking about Gene Key 11, and this is from Gene Keys, written by Richard Rudd. And we are moving from three different states of consciousness. So, one of the states is called the shadow. And with the shadow, that is obscurity.
It's more of
And
a
then,
fear based. We'll get into the consciousness levels in a
yes.
little bit. Yeah.
Then there's the gift level, and that's idealism. Yep. And the highest state is called the acidic state of consciousness, and that is pure light.
Which is
Ooh,
perfect because you have light coming
I've
through
got
the window.
can't make it up. So,
For those of you who are just listening, you're missing this amazing
uh,
visual of the light streaming onto Suzanne's face.
so
Um, so, yeah, this is a very ethereal topic. And I am for one of the very rare moments in my life, I'm struggling with words to play with this. I can talk about the shadow one pretty easily because, man, I know how to talk about shadows. But where I want to play with is obscurity. How does that show up in the human consciousness? And then we can talk about individuals. But I mean, like, as a species, how are we playing with obscurity on a huge global level right now?
um, it's it's when humans can't tap into their divinity and their like their knowingness to for clarity. They just it's obscured. It's
So
it
it's like
and it
if you were to take a sun, if you were like to take a sunshade and put it over that, can you do that? Take your hand and cover up that light so that it, yeah. So now you're obscuring the sunlight from hitting
mhm,
you. There's a visual. Now, can
right,
we imagine that on an energetic level? Can we imagine that on a consciousness level?
right.
Of forgetting our divinity, forgetting that we're so much more than this body and this brain.
And this is one of the last gene keys that's associated with the ring of light, and it's also connected to your pituitary gland.
Hmm.
So your other knowingness. Yeah.
So, so obscurity, I was trying to think of what that is for me. And I'll before I ask you, I just want to say what I feel like I do when I'm playing with that shadow of obscurity is I get caught up in time and space and deadlines and how to solve problems versus sometimes you just step away and the problem solves itself versus
Right,
this constant I gotta fix this, I have to understand this, oh, that's the other thing, I have to understand it. Like, I
right.
can't live the uncertainty is very uncomfortable, which it always will be, but how do we relax into the uncertainty
Yeah.
to allow something new to come and be?
So um, I think what people see as reality, um, it's
With
like a
these
viewed,
eyes.
yes, it's a viewed, skewed reality. And what Richard says is The 11th shadow greatly limits a very specific functioning of the right hemisphere of the human brain, that aspect of your mind that does not see patterns and facts through language and numbers, but tries to grasp reality through the reams of interconnected and intuitively grasped fractal images emerging from the deep recesses of the brain. Now, for a moment, and let me just pause. The right hemisphere of the brain has long been seen as the feminine side of the brain. It is the lateral thinking, intuitive, and artistic side of your mind. Now, that's the site. That's where we really can tap into the juice. And a lot of times we have so developed the other
The logical stuff.
aspect that we forget our clarity by trusting our own intuition.
And the oneness, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the right, when we're operating from the right side of the brain, it's where potential and
Yeah,
creativity, and it's where insights can come through, things that have never been, right? The creative side,
yeah,
versus this side is like basically like our computer, and it runs our bodies beautifully. I'm not saying that we don't appreciate our logical side of the brain, but what it does is it basically stores history.
yeah,
So when something happens or we get a sensation in our body, we go, oh, that means I'm getting a cold, and that means I'm going to get sick. And you know what I mean? So we associate with the past or with a previous situation, and then we basically recreate it versus, huh, what would be another way to respond to this is that maybe my body just wants to rest more. Maybe I need a 10-hour sleep night tonight to catch up. Maybe I need more fluids, you know,
yeah,
versus, oh, you know. So,
yeah. Going back into that fear state.
mhm.
So I'm going to quickly just talk about the repressive
Oh,
nature and
please.
the,
I love that you do that.
oh goodness. So the repressive nature is all about the fantasizing part. So if the foundation of repression is fear, then when this fear is not embraced, it creates an enormous drain on our system,
Oh,
like on our bodies. So he says, unlived lives gradually drain the physical energy from the body, leading to all kinds of manner of physical health problems
hmm,
because it's inefficient,
right.
because you're not living full out in your essence. You are, dimming it by constricting it.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's always like you've got these fantasies, but you don't move on them. You don't live any life part out.
Yeah. Like, let me give you a gift. God gives us this beautiful idea, or a creative source gives us these ideas or these opportunities. And we're like, nah,
Yeah,
nah.
yeah, yeah. And then the reactive nature is rooted in denial or anger.
Oh, which is
And
where I
so,
feel like a lot of our world is right now. So angry.
yeah, so if we would own what we're dealing with there would be a totally different aha, but it it's like we stuff it and hide our anger, and that's the kind of people that have these brilliant ideas and they have great minds, but they never manifest it. So it never comes into fruition because they deny it and they can't let go of what they would have become. Like, so that's like it's out there somewhere as
You
opposed
never
to
get there. Yeah.
there.
I
Right.
had, my father was like that, where he was, he would make his millions, and then he couldn't hold on to them because he couldn't be what he imagined himself to be. And he could never just be with what was. So it was funny because he would make a million, lose a million, make it, you know what I mean? And back in the 70s and 80s, when a million was a lot of money, he just didn't know how to, he was so forward thinking, which is one of my things. I'm very future. If you do Strengths Finder, my top two of my top five are futuristic and strategic. Like, so it's hard to come back into this moment and go, in this moment, am I prosperous? Am I successful? Am I healthy? Am I resourced. So so the repressive is that's the holding it down, which makes it more fear, more inner.
Anger,
Oh,
denial.
okay. Which one's reactive and which one's repressive? I'm trying to learn the difference.
Well, it's talking about the reactive nature being diluted. So it's rooted in anger and denial. It turns that inner fantasy into a projection field and tries to manifest it in the world. But
There's that force versus strength. Yeah. Okay.
right.
Okay. So when you play with obscurity, I'm going to put you on the spot. Tell
Ugh.
me, how does it? Oh, come on. People
Yeah.
love when you share. So I think it's important to share our own obscurity and how that shows up so people can start recognizing it within. What happens for you? How does it manifest in you in your life?
Um, I sometimes don't remember my own light if I start messing in other, like listening to other people or listening to a lot of the noise that um, can be distractions. And that's where the obscurity comes in, because then I can't, I don't see my divinity. I don't hear my messages. I don't listen to my beingness
Your wisdom,
and
yeah.
my own wisdom. I'm listening to somebody else's wisdom. So it's
Mhm.
obscuring my own light from showing up.
Yeah. And
And
it's
so,
and that does I want to speak to that because I just used this example in a coaching thing recently about when you have God-given talents and gifts and you hold them. It's like taking a beach ball and holding it under the water. And you think about how hard that is to hold that inflatable thing underwater. That's how much energy we are expending that isn't necessary. If we let go and let it pop up and be and float.
right, right.
Whoa. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of energy that I think. I don't know about you, but I don't have any extra energy to be spending, but I find all kinds of ways that I'm leaking it and spending it. Oh, thank you for answering, darling.
Yes.
I know you love it when I put you
Well,
on the spot.
well, and I too, I know that for me, sometimes the I call it the itty bitty shitty committee, the fear gets in of, oh, what if I'm fully seen? If I'm shining too bright, somebody's going to be like, you know,
Yeah.
that's bullshit or whatever. And, I think that at this day and day and time, we're all here to share our light and our joy and
And
our life.
and we got to get over that fear of
Uh-huh.
a fear
Yeah.
that we won't be loved, won't be appreciated, won't be seen, won't be, and none of that really should matter, but we're still caught up in that. I want to belong. I want to
Yeah,
fit the group. I want to.
and that it's really funny when you get into the space of just your knowingness, you're just like, you're so expansive and it just feels wondrous and it's palpable. I mean, it's just,
Well, we all can feel you when you're emanating. It is like you don't have to do, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to create
hey,
those Facebook lives. You just are.
yeah, yeah.
And it's healing in its own right for you because you're not what so the gift of obscurity is.
Oh, the gift of obscurity is idealism
So
and
now this
fun.
makes me feel like we're like shooting for the stars and we're not being realistic. Can you help define what idealism is as the gift uh to that shadow?
It's when we are playing in the right hemisphere of our brain and
Oh, okay.
and it's
So it's
play.
like we're like using
Right. Right.
okay.
And I that was that's what people used to sometimes say about me, is that I'm very Pollyanna, but I guess I was using the right hemisphere of my brain more. Um, but it's recognizing and seeing magic as truth, you know,
Yeah.
looking at the wonder of how life works. And um, you, when you're in that state, you do sense um, awe and almost fairy tale and magic kind of
And I
energy.
want, yeah, and I want to add a disclaimer to that because yes, you can feel fairy tale and magic because this is where my logic brain is stepping in going, whoa, whoa, whoa. But it is not um it's not spiritual bypassing.
No,
It's not positive toxicity or toxic positivity or and the reason why I want to make that clear is very often there's a lot of very intuitive, brilliant, spiritual people out there who tend to only look at the light. And we're coming from a place now of integrity and integral ways of being. And that means I look at the light and the trunk and the roots, and it's all,
yeah,
we don't like cut the roots off and then the tree dies.
right.
So it's
When
yeah,
you
it's when can you fall in love with the obscurity and go, oh look, there's my tendency to go in that direction. And you know what?
That's
I'm going to
perfect.
choose, yeah, I'm going to choose the idealism.
Well, and what Richard's talking about with the idealism is that it's when you are living in your dream and you're letting go of the outcome.
Oh, okay. So there you bring in kind of a Buddhist.
You got to give up what it looks like. You know, you are living fully in your dream and you're not attached to the outcome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Danielle
it is
Laporte
very
taught
Buddha
us that years ago about it's not about what it's going to look like in the future. It's how
no,
do you want to feel?
right now.
That is something you can create. But I can't create that house on the man. For years, I was doing the house on the beach with the waves lapping up, and but what do I want to feel living in or retiring in that space?
Hmm.
So that's the I really appreciate that distinction. Thank you for helping. Is there anything else on the gift that is a way for us to expand into that operating system more often?
I think one of the challenges that people may have is discovering what your true ideals and what your dreams are.
Oh,
I
because
think people restrict themselves because they're
yes.
like, "Oh, that's never going to happen,"
Oh yeah, I
or
can't do that.
you know,
That's too big. Yeah. Mhm.
right. So that's one of the first challenges to really once you tap into yourself and allow yourself to play.
Yeah. And that question of who am I to want that, to be that, to do that? And I'm like, if I get rid of my obscurity hat, I am a divine being. I am a light being. Why wouldn't I want to do what I'm thinking and dreaming and imagining with my um, right hemisphere?
Yeah.
Ooh, that feels so juicy. Go back and play those chimes again. I can tell my little girl.
Yes. This isn't magic and fairy tales, but it is, you know, that when you can get into that space of truly allowing the divine to live through you, things that are beyond even your own comprehension manifest.
Absolutely.
And so,
Which is where
we,
we have to get out of our own way because our brain is limited on what it can see as a potential, you know?
right, right. It's so far beyond what
Oh
we might
man,
recognize.
I love that.
So,
Okay, well that changes my whole because I always used to get that oh you're too idealistic. Like what you want isn't possible. Da 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 da. I mean, and then in the business world, they wanted things tied to metrics and potential and what's the probability and now I'm like, which is why I'm not
well,
in that world, I suppose.
well, just think now, the shift is taking place
It is.
where they have dream, you know,
Yeah, visioning
dream
workshops, which are
dream tanks and
yeah.
workshops. Yeah,
Mhm. And it's
because
thank God.
we've got to create something new. And people have brilliant ideas, but they're not coming forth with them.
Well, because they're like,
Yeah,
oh, that's not real. That's not
right,
possible.
right.
So yeah, this is time for us to, even if we're not ready to speak them into being to other people, to play with your own creativity, like paint or draw or dance that image into being, or that idea or that concept, because that is what we're planting seeds by doing that.
Exactly.
Ooh, I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we ready for this city, or do we want to
No, I think we are ready for the city.
uh
This is really an interesting, the way he says it, the title of it is The Citic State is Light, and it says Uprooting the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil. I was like, whoa.
because it's yeah. I feel like that's that whole thing about integral that I'm playing with right now, the integral consciousness level. Ooh, I love that. And so if you're uprooting, we're so good at labeling, aren't we? Oh, that's
Yeah,
good. That's bad. Oh, that happened on the news today. Well, that's bad. Ooh, that's good news. Versus, huh, wonder this is all going to weave together into something new. I wonder what's going on here. Being
right.
yes, you know?
Yeah. Um, it does talk about behind and through all forms, a light, um, through all forms, a light shines, a pure light, not a physical light, but an intelligence beyond all identification. And then one enters the mind and the body of the divine. And so that's that direct connect, right? And so that's where you go through life through the eyes of a child, and you're just
Mm,
open and wondrous, and it's as mythic as the Garden of Eden, he says, which I think is really divine and delicious and fun and playful.
yeah.
Um, it's the radiance of that divine presence. And each one of us is that light. And so that's so funny that we obscure our own light. I mean, it's always
Oh, I
present.
think it's tragic actually. But yeah, it's an interesting, how do we teach children? I mean, I remember my one daughter saying, I don't want to grow up. I don't ever want to be an adult. I want to stay a kid forever. And I think it was because she knew that once we grow up, we kind of like dim the, it's like fun goes away. It's all about getting stuff done. Well, my poor daughter, that's probably what she experienced.
Well, something else he says that really kind of resonates with me is that the light has never been outside of us. It's
Oh,
deep within us. And
and
so when I think,
there's that looking outside for wisdom thing, right?
uh-huh, it's in here. And I kind of think of it as like we generate it, and it, yeah, it's, I don't want to say a nuclear reactor, but it's
Oh, kind
detonates
of.
in its own time.
So basically we're telling people, don't listen to us. Find your own
Yeah,
wisdom.
exactly.
We don't have any truths. We're just kind of like
We're just throwing it out there.
we
Yeah,
are expressing in our unique
yeah.
ways, right?
In
So
our own unique frequency. Yeah.
right. So truth, love, and light of who we are, the sacred geometry of each of us is is what we're all here to do.
Yes.
So, oh my gosh, I love that. And I think that for a long time I felt like light had to be something that you saw with these eyes versus
Mm.
the feeling of light, the energy of light. Like the sound of that chime just makes me want to weep with joy. It's like, oh, if I were a kid, I'd probably drive my parents nuts playing that thing all day long, you know?
Well, sound definitely plays a part and showing us light. but even thinking about color and the spectrums of colors that
Yeah.
we had, like the spectrum that you just saw earlier in this video, that light code's coming through. You know,
Yeah.
we don't know exactly how they are affecting us, but they have their own language.
Absolutely. Look at really? I just went um so as we move into just noticing when we feel the light, like even if it's momentarily every day, or for 5 minutes as we pause and really immerse ourselves into the sunset light in the sky, or before we go to bed at nighttime and feeling all warm and cozy with the gratitude of our warm blankets and our beautiful comfy beds or whatever. How can we, I mean, what are practices to expand our capacity to hold more light, to feel more light, to be more light? Thoughts?
I, I think being still,
Mhm.
um, doing meditation, um, and sometimes even meditating while you're doing things too. I still, there's something about driving meditation,
Shower.
shower, everything with water for me, like
Yeah.
shower or like when I'm washing
Dishwashing.
dishes. Yep. Um, but recognizing the thoughts that you're thinking as you're in that state and recognizing the expansiveness, seeing numbers, hearing different tones or messages through song. I mean, it's staying connected to that wherever the messages might be coming from and being alert to them.
Yeah. And I know we're heading into the dark, into the solstice, which actually means more light will be coming after the 21st. But um, in the equinoxes, especially in the spring and fall, when the sun is angled, it comes through the windows in such a beautiful way. It hits all my crystals, it hits all my stained glass windows, and I can just sit and go, I could just sit and watch the sun and the shadows through the trees on on my wall. I don't need to watch TV. That's like the most mesmerizing, and I always feel like I'm being communicated with
Hmm.
by light beings, by myself, by higher source. I don't know, but I just bask in that and go, thank you.
Yeah. Spending time outside
Mm,
is even going for a 15-20 minute walk.
feeling
Not even.
sun. I used to do when I did one of my very first mystery schools, we had a moon journal. And on the full moon and the new moon, we were invited to go outside, and there was always a prompt. And we would ask that and just sit for 15 minutes or more and receive the experience, receive what messages were available to us. And it was so a moon meditation, sun meditations, yeah. But right now we have a lot more access because the nights are so long to the nighttime sky. And most people don't go outside at nighttime, you
Yeah.
know? So anyway, I'm going to practice that. I love sunrise and sunsets. Those are my favorite when the sky like paints a new painting every
I know. So, with that, talking about messages,
draw
what,
card.
yes, what number? One, two, or three?
Geez. Two.
Okay. This is a deck by Rebecca Campbell. Actually, I just got it. It's called Work Your Light
Oh
Oracle
yeah.
deck. So let's see what message pops through for us today in this now moment. Whenever you hear this message, this is for all of us. Be thinking of a question, maybe, and you're wanting to get an answer to. You are the oracle, remember? So, all right, top, middle, or bottom, Deborah?
Top.
Okay. Hmm. Unbound. Ooh. Releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives.
That might keep us in obscurity if we hold on.
Hang on to that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any practice or any guidance around that?
Yes, just one moment, please. All
Hold,
right.
please.
Hold, please. Um, yeah, this deck is a little different. I like it though. Okay, unbound. Ready?
Yeah.
You can just keep looking at the picture.
Ooh.
Um, it's time to release old soul stories that have been playing out in your life. They are coming up to be healed. There's never been a safer time to clear these patterns right now. Take a look at patterns in your life that you are ready to release, ancient vows and contracts that your soul made that have an expiry date. It could be a vow of silence or chastity or poverty. It is time to unwind from them. This is the life in which you free yourself from trauma of lives past. What old ways of being have an expiration date? When you name them, you claim them, and you stop holding power, they stop holding power over you. When you acknowledge these old patterns, it's also important to acknowledge how they've served you up until now. For example, a soul pattern of playing small caused by a soul fear of being seen or sharing your voice would have served you by keeping you safe. In
Mm.
order to grow, you now need to soften by receiving and calling in support. It is time to unbind from the old ways of being that are no longer sustainable. So just imagine this card, and what you're going to say and hold over your heart is I release all soul stories, vows, contracts, and patterns that are no longer aligned with who I came here to be in this present time. I carry the lessons, growth, and gifts, but I no longer choose to live the same story. May I be unbound, unbound, forever unbound.
May I be unbound, unbound, forever unbound.
And
Yeah.
so it is.
I love the idea. I think in the past we weren't as willing to be grateful to the lessons, the patterns, the stories, the wiring that our brain had versus, yeah, there was a reason I put that in there. That there's a reason why I had that as a safety thing.
The
Um,
safety valve.
yeah, and I don't, and you
Yeah.
know what? I'm opening it all the way. So the that's a beautiful way to end, I think. May
Yeah.
I be unbound, unbound, forever unbound. So
So
that
you're
light,
not obscured and your light comes through.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I honor your light.
I honor yours.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up and sharing your light.
We need you. We need your light.